Hi, I'm Kaja.
And I'm Joanna.
And this is Starlit Citadel Reviews.
Boss Monster is a silly and light game of competitive dungeon building from Johnny and Chris O'Neill and Brotherwise Games.
In Boss Monster, players are the bosses lurking at the end of 8-bit dungeons, competing to lure in adventurers, kill them, and collect their souls. It supports from 2 to 4 players and lasts about an hour. The expansion, Tools of Hero Kind, adds item cards which make the heroes more of a challenge.
Each player begins Boss Monster by drawing a boss card and placing it face up in front of them. They prepare a hero deck based on the number of players, and then shuffle the room and spell decks and place them face down. Each player draws 5 rooms and 2 spells and discards 2 cards.
Every player builds their first room by placing one of their room cards face down to the left of their boss, beginning with the player with the highest XP value on their boss card. Everyone reveals their rooms simultaneously, and the game begins.
At the beginning of each turn, a number of hero cards equal to the number of players are placed face up in town, which is the center of the table. Then each player draws 1 room.
Next comes the build phase. In order from highest to lowest XP, each player may add 1 room to their dungeon. New rooms are placed at the far left of the dungeon to a maximum of 5 rooms, or on top of an existing room. Advanced rooms, marked with a gold icon in their upper left, can only be placed on top of an existing room with a matching treasure icon in its lower right.
Any spells with the build symbol on them can be used during the build phase. When it comes to casting spells, the active player takes priority, so they get a chance to respond to anybody else's spells before they're resolved. At the end of the build phase, all players reveal their rooms simultaneously, and any "when you build this room" actions take effect.
The first time a player's dungeon reaches 5 rooms, their boss's level up action is triggered. If multiple players level up on the same turn, then their actions are resolved in XP order.
In the bait phase, players compare the number of icons of each different treasure type that they have on their rooms and boss cards. Each face-up hero in town will be lured to the dungeon with the most icons matching their own treasure type, and their card is placed to the left of that dungeon. In the case of a tie, the hero remains in town.
In the adventure phase, the heroes move through their respective dungeons. In XP order, each player processes their heroes one by one in the order they arrived. As a hero enters each room, the room's ability takes effect, and the hero takes damage equal to the value in the heart on the room card's lower left. After damage is dealt, each player may use a spell or ability with the adventure phase icon.
If a hero takes a total amount of damage equal to or greater than their health points, then they die, and they are placed in a pile face down by the active player's dungeon. They are worth the amount of soul icons listed on the card's back. If a hero makes it to the boss card alive, then they are scored face up and count as the number of wounds that are listed in their lower right.
If a room is destroyed by an effect, then its card is removed and the room underneath it becomes active. If there's no room underneath, then the cards to the destroyed room's left slide over rightwards and fill in the gap. If a room is deactivated, its card is turned sideways and it becomes reactivated at the end of the turn.
If a player ends a turn with 5 or more wounds, then they are eliminated. If a player ends their turn with 10 or more souls, then they win the game.
So the first thing that everyone's going to notice about Boss Monster is the art. They have done an absolutely fantastic job of evoking old 8-bit side-scrolling video games, from the art on the cards that evokes classic or newer games, to the fact that when you line them up they actually link together and it looks like a dungeon, to the fact that the rulebook looks suspiciously like the rulebooks that used to come with my Super NES games. It's beautifully, beautifully done and really captures the spirit of those old games. I also like the fact that, much in keeping with those, it's very quick to pick up and play. You're not going to be playing for longer than an hour. The rules don't take that long to get into. You can really just jump in and start going and start building that dungeon. Now, unfortunately, where this great pace falls down for me is on the gameplay. The fact that the build phase requires everybody to act individually and in order, and then to play a card face down, so there's not even an immediate reveal after you've waited for somebody to take their turn, just completely kills the pacing. You know, this is a side scroller. You want things to be moving quickly. You want there to be a sense of urgency. You want to be constantly pressing onwards into the next room. And instead, you often find yourself just sitting and waiting for somebody to do something, and you don't even know what they just did. And it kind of just sucks the fun out of the experience. Another challenge that I found was that you are really dependent on the luck of the draw in this game. If you don't get a decent spread of treasure icons, or if you end up with too many advanced rooms, then some of your decisions can feel really predetermined because you're not so much planning a strategy as you are making the best of a bad or a mediocre situation. And that can be a little discouraging.
So something else that can really mess with the pacing in this game is it is really prone to analysis paralysis. So if you're the kind of person who takes a really long time to make decisions, you're going to get stuck in this game. It's going to get bogged down. You're already waiting for other players to complete their turns. You've got to do it in order. So if you've got a player at the table who takes a long time to make decisions, you are going to feel it here for sure. That being said, this game is quite interactive for the kind of game it is. This is a race game, so it means everybody's sort of building the same kind of thing. You're all trying to build it faster and better than everyone else. And when you have a game like that, it can kind of feel like multiplayer solitaire. But that isn't really the case here. You do feel like there's enough interaction that it doesn't fall prey to that. It's also quite a good scaling game, so it plays with 2 to 4 players. Sometimes when you have a game like that, you'll have a game that's a really strong 2-player game and then it gets weak on the upper end, or the other way around, and that's not the case here. This game mechanic works well if you're playing just with someone else, or if you're playing with a small group.
Do 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 do.